The audio file arrived at 11:51 p.m. on a Wednesday. No name, no return number, just a voice, measured, deliberate, and unmistakably familiar with the inside of a federal building. 17 seconds, that was all it took. They didn't lose those files, the voice said. They buried them. And the order didn't come from career agents. It came from the top. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett listened to that recording 3 times before dawn. Someone with direct knowledge. Someone claiming that evidence from Jeffrey Epstein's client list, names, records, materials recovered during the 2019 Manhattan federal search, had been deliberately suppressed inside FBI headquarters, not delayed by legal process, not caught in grand jury restrictions, buried, on purpose. With full knowledge of what was being protected. Pull everything we have on the FBI's internal chain of command. After 2019, she told her chief of staff, we're going in differently tomorrow. But here is what almost no one in that room knew. The folder Crockett carried wasn't just about what was found in that Manhattan search, it was about what was found, and then quietly made to disappear inside the Bureau's own walls. And the gap between those two things was about to become the worst 40 minutes of Kash Patel's professional life. Reporters who rarely attended oversight hearings suddenly made room in their schedules. Staffers assigned to other committees had quietly rerouted their schedules. Nobody had issued a warning, yet somehow everyone seemed aware that this hearing might become something very different before it was over. FBI Director Kash Patel entered the hearing room at exactly 9:10 a.m. Confident, controlled. The kind of composed that comes from weeks of preparation and complete faith in your own preparation. He had survived confirmation battles. He had survived hostile press cycles. He had sat through more congressional hearings than most witnesses twice his age. He moved to the witness table like a man who owned the room, his legal team flanking him, briefcases loaded with objections and executive privilege claims. Crockett had replayed the recording until sunrise. By then, she wasn't hearing speculation anymore. She was hearing a blueprint. For nearly 40 minutes, the hearing unfolded exactly the way Patel's advisors had hoped it would. Budget allocations, counterterrorism statistics, field office coordination. Patel answered with ease, fluent, untroubled, almost theatrical in his comfort. He cited arrest numbers. He referenced task force operations. He smiled at the friendlier questions from the Republican side of the table. His hand rested loose on the witness desk, pen barely touched. Then her name was called. Director Patel, she began. Her voice was not loud. It was something more dangerous than loud. It was still. I want to start with a simple question about the 2019 federal search of Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan residence. The FBI conducted that search, correct? That is correct, Congresswoman. Patel's posture didn't change, not yet, and among the materials recovered, the FBI cataloged items that investigators themselves described as potentially relevant to identifying individuals within Epstein's network of associates, including photographic materials and records found inside a secured safe on the premises. 2 members of Patel's legal team exchanged a glance. It lasted less than a second, but Crockett saw it. I'd want to be careful about characterizing specific items without reviewing applicable legal. I'm not asking you to characterize specific items, Crockett said, her tone never rising. I'm asking whether your investigators believed those materials were relevant to identifying Epstein's associates. Yes or no? Patel's jaw tightened slightly. That would be consistent with the stated purpose of the search, yes. Good. Crockett unfolded the file with the calm familiarity of someone who already knew every page inside it. Then I need to ask you about the client list. Because Director Patel, you have confirmed publicly that such a list exists within FBI holdings. Career agents confirmed the same. The Form 302 documents from the 2019 Southern District of New York indictment name specific individuals, and yet those individuals have faced, to the American public's knowledge, effectively no consequences. So my question is straightforward. What happened to the investigative follow-up on those names? The room dropped in temperature. What followed wasn't on any briefing memo sitting in front of Patel. That was precisely why Crockett asked it. Director Patel, Crockett continued, her voice measured now, deliberate, each word placed with precision. I received information from a source with direct knowledge of internal FBI communications. This source alleges that evidence connected to the Epstein client list, specific materials from the Manhattan search, was deliberately not escalated, not because of legal barriers, not because of grand jury protections, but because a decision was made, somewhere inside your chain of command, that certain names on that list would not be pursued. She paused. The silence lasted 9 seconds. I need you to tell me, under oath, whether you have any knowledge of instructions, given to you or by you, directing how those materials would be handled. Patel's expression held. But the pen in his right hand, which had been resting loose on the desk for the past 40 minutes, was now gripped. Not writing, just gripped. I'm not aware of any improper handling of materials, Congresswoman. I didn't say improper, Crockett replied immediately. I said deliberate. And I want that difference reflected clearly in the official record. She looked down at the folder, turned a single page, and continued without looking up. Let me ask you something about that client list specifically. Director Patel, you are a former federal prosecutor. You understand exactly what it means when investigators have names, have documentation, have individuals connected to a network of this scale, and yet only one person from that entire inner circle was ever convicted. One, his longtime associate. His accountant, who reportedly sought to cooperate for years, was barely engaged until very late in the process. His personal pilot, who logged those flights for over a decade, gave statements that went without meaningful follow-up. She raised her eyes to his. Does that sound to you like every lead connected to that client list was pursued? No answer. Patel's mouth opened, then it closed. His legal team shifted behind him. He reached for his water glass, and for the first time since 9:06 a.m., his movement was not smooth. Director, Crockett said quietly, let me ask you something directly. Why are you protecting Donald Trump? What did he promise you? Was it a guarantee that you would remain FBI Director indefinitely? That your position was secure as long as certain files stayed buried? The atmosphere changed instantly. Everyone in the room understood that the hearing had just crossed into far more dangerous territory. Several committee members leaned forward. The press gallery stilled completely. A Republican member started to object, then stopped. Patel's face went very tight. Congresswoman, I reject that characterization entirely. Director Patel, Crockett interrupted, her voice cutting clean through his. Why did you lie to the American people about the Epstein client list? These are not rhetorical questions. Career agents submitted those Form 302 documents. Victims cooperated. Victims named names, and the names went nowhere. She leaned forward. Why did you tell Congress and the American people that there were no credible leads when your own bureau's internal documents tell a completely different story? Patel tried to respond. His communications team had prepared answers for challenges about qualifications, about political loyalty, about his relationship with the administration. Nobody had prepared him for this, for the stillness of the room, for the way Crockett wasn't shouting, because she didn't need to. And I want to ask you one more thing, Crockett said, her voice dropping lower now, more deliberate, more dangerous than anything she'd said before. If this audio recording I received, 17 seconds, a voice from inside your building, if the American people heard what is on that recording, Director Patel, do you have any idea what would happen? Do you understand what it says? Do you understand what it implies about the decisions that were made inside FBI headquarters regarding individuals on that client list? Patel's breathing changed, not dramatically, not the kind of change a camera catches easily, but the rise of his chest was visible. His eyes, which had been sharp and directed since he walked in, moved, briefly, involuntarily, to his legal team. He found no help there. I don't know what recording you're referring to, he said. His voice carried a slight elevation it had not carried at 9 o'clock. That's a remarkable response, Director, and it highlights exactly why we're here. She allowed the silence to do the work. For several long moments, nobody said a word. A senior committee staffer on the Republican side looked at the floor. Let me raise something directly, Director. My serious concern, and I want to be honest with you, is not simply that mistakes were made. I am skeptical that someone of your background and experience makes mistakes this consistent without knowing precisely what those mistakes are protecting. A pause. You are a former federal prosecutor. You have operated at the highest levels of law enforcement. You know what happens when you don't review primary evidence and rely only on summaries. You know what that creates. You know what it allows. Another pause, longer this time. So I'll ask you plainly, were you ever made aware, through any channel, formal or informal, that certain individuals connected to the Epstein client list had what might be called protection from escalation inside your own bureau? Patel's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. I want to be clear that the integrity of FBI investigations is something I take, and I want to be clear, Crockett interrupted, that I have serious doubts about your sincerity on that point. Not because I think you're incompetent. The opposite, actually. I think you are fully aware of what you did and did not pursue. I think you know exactly which names were on that list, and I think the American people deserve to know whether your awareness came with instructions or with incentives. Something shifted in Patel's face then. The composure held. He was too disciplined, too trained for it not to. But the effort behind holding it had become visible. His eyes were bright in a way that was no longer confident brightness. The muscles along his jaw were working steadily. When he reached for his water glass again, he set it back down without drinking. His legal team said nothing. They had nothing to say. And then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, his breath caught in the open microphone. Kash Patel had walked into this room certain he was ready. He had been in hostile hearings before. He had been questioned by senators who despised him. He had faced rooms full of people who wanted him to fail. He had never, not once, walked away from a witness table looking like this. Crockett wasn't finished. Director Patel, There are high-profile individuals connected to the materials recovered from that Manhattan search. Some of them have the kind of resources that, historically, create certain pressures for investigators, certain complications. She did not look away from him. The recording was never played for the public. In the end, it wasn't necessary. The hearing's most damaging moment wasn't created by Crockett's accusations. It came from the answers Patel never gave. And now, we want your answer in the comments. Was the audio tip Crockett received a genuine warning from someone inside the FBI who finally couldn't stay silent? A career agent, someone who had watched evidence disappear and couldn't live with it anymore? Or was it something else entirely, a coordinated operation, designed by people with far more power than Crockett, to remove Patel from a position he was never fully trusted to hold, before he said something that couldn't be unsaid? One answer means a whistleblower told the truth about the Epstein client list. The other means someone powerful enough to orchestrate this entire sequence is still in the room. Type your answer. The people making these decisions are counting on your silence.